Thanks for listening to Curious Cat, the podcast that examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. I'm your host, Jennifer Holtz. Join me every week as I explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit. Welcome to Curious Cat. Last week, we began our trek across the bridge to the celestial. We remembered our connection to the stars and their connection to our very DNA. From a deep dive into birth charts to the ways the stars have pressed into the soul of night sky tourists, there's no doubt about the influence of the sun and the moon and the stars on us. How about legends of werewolves, humans changing into half dog, half human beasts during a full moon? Do our moods change based on lunar and solar activity? Let's get into it. First, the sun. It's what some have called the hearth and heart of our planet. Did you know our sun accounts for 99.8% of our solar system's mass? That fact comes from NASA, and it's no wonder the Earth and us, its inhabitants, are influenced by it because Earth exists inside the sun's atmosphere. You heard that right. Outside that heliosphere is interstellar space. NASA continues. The sun doesn't have a solid surface like Earth and the other rocky planets and moon. The part of the sun commonly called its surface is the photosphere. The word photosphere means light sphere, which is apt because this is a layer that emits the most visible light. It's what we see from Earth with our eyes, and they remind us to never look directly at the sun without eye protection. I always think of Jessa Reed, and she burned her corneas because she was staring into the sun during a meditation one time. And then there's this. In one of the sun's biggest mysteries, the corona is much hotter than the layers immediately below it. Okay, so imagine walking away from a bonfire only to get warmer. That's what they're saying. The source of coronal heating is a major unsolved puzzle in the study of the sun. The sun doesn't behave the same way all the time. It goes through phases of high and low activity, which make up the solar cycle. We're all somewhat familiar, right, with the lunar cycles, but how about the solar ones? And does solar activity affect human beings? Yes, it does. Here's more from health.com. Amanda McMillan writes, do geomagnetic storms affect humans? Solar flares, also called geomagnetic storms or geomagnetic disturbances, are when the sun releases excess energy, often in the form of massive explosions. This rapid magnetic field variation can impact life on Earth. Satellites, oil and gas drilling, radio communication, GPS systems, and electrical power grids can be affected by these changes in space weather. People may wonder if these geomagnetic storms harm humans. While the sun can produce solar flares that can damage machinery and technology, there's little evidence to suggest solar flares have dangerous effects on humans. What are solar flares or geomagnetic storms? When the energy stored in the sun's magnetic fields is suddenly released in a burst, huge explosions can happen. These explosions are called solar flares. The flares produce sudden and intense light flashes, sending high-energy particles and a burst of ultraviolet rays into space. Particles can reach the Earth in a few hours or days, creating a geomagnetic storm in the Earth's atmosphere that can last for days. Flares have been known to cause a lot of things, including radiation storms in the upper atmosphere, radio blackouts around the world, transformer explosions, widespread cell phone outages. They can also cause fluctuations in magnetic fields reaching the Earth's surface. These take a couple of days to get here, but when they arrive, they can interact with our magnetosphere. That from Dale Gary, PhD, a distinguished professor of physics at the New Jersey Institute of Technology's Center for Solar Terrestrial Research, also called NJIT. And he told Health magazine that can induce currents in our power lines. And when that happens, transformers can blow or power outages can occur. So back to that question, do solar flares influence human health? Because geomagnetic storms can have such powerful impacts on machinery and technology, some have wondered if these events can harm humans. People have reported feeling sick or having headaches following solar flares. Some research shows a link between geomagnetic disturbances and increased rates of heart problems. However, more research is needed in this area. However, most experts agree that solar flares are nothing to worry about from a health perspective. Harmful radiation from a flare cannot pass through Earth's atmosphere to physically affect humans on the ground, said NASA in a 2017 statement. However, when intense enough, they can disturb the atmosphere in the layer where GPS and communication signals travel. Gary agreed with NASA's statement there are potential health effects for anyone exposed to that high energy radiation, but actually we are protected because those rays and particles get absorbed into our atmosphere. The radiation from solar events like geomagnetic storms naturally occur in the environment, but isn't a threat to human health from day to day. People on airplanes flying at high altitudes over the poles might be at increased risk for some of this radiation, said Gary. Occasionally, flight routes are changed during periods of unusual solar activity. For anyone on the ground, though, added Gary, there's not much to worry about except for potential safety issues if the power goes out. GPS and traffic light outages could make for risky driving, for example, or hospitals could theoretically lose access to health data. Not everyone has been convinced that solar flares are completely harmless. The area of science dedicated to investigating the connections between human health and solar activity is called heliobiology. Some researchers contend that the link can be negative. One study said that a variety of health issues may be caused by changes in the solar and geomagnetic environment that include blood flow alterations, cardiac arrhythmia, cardiovascular disease, epileptic seizures, increased blood pressure, increased incidence of myocardial infarction-related death. Gary doubted the connections between solar flares and human health, saying, quote, the change in the magnetic field we're talking about is really small. If you think of the magnetic field that causes your compass needle to point north, we're talking about 0.1% of that fluctuation, end quote, explained Gary. The giant power grid amplifies those tiny changes, said Gary, but they're unlikely to affect an individual human body. Okay, I have questions, Gary. The sun, our giant power grid, must have an impact on us as individuals. It has to. If the huge power grid in our town, for example, glitches or fails, our individual home also loses power. And if there's a power surge on the grid, it blows out transformers, and that can blow out tech that's plugged into the system. So the sun does impact us. If you're looking for daily information on solar activity and the possible effects on human beings, I recommend you find Andrea Land, the Grooving Goddess, on Patreon. She's also on Instagram, and she is such a fount of knowledge, gives you straight talk about this subject. And Follow along with those Patreon and Instagrams is a fantastic way to become aware of the sun's connection to our own bodies, from headaches to restless nights of sleep to needing a nap in the middle of the day and more. What do the stories of the stars say about us? I found an excellent article from discovermagazine.com titled Interpreting 5 Ancient Constellations Across Cultures. In it, Joshua Rapp-Learn explains, civilizations come and go, with some lasting mere decades while others endure for millennia. But what rarely changes, at least on human timescales, are the stars above us. Nonetheless, past cultures have often connected the dots of various stars in different ways, representing everything from the myths of creation to legendary figures and godlike animals, depending on the viewer. Some of these cultural references go back thousands of years and are possibly even older. They represent early examples of humanity's preoccupation with symbolism in the world around us, and how vastly different cultures have sometimes interpreted the sky in similar ways. Okay, and I need to point out real quick, this is before screens, before computers, before televisions and radio, and before ambient lighting outside, right? So what was the main feature every single night when you went to sleep or were going to sleep? The sky above was the main star. But he continues, cultures around the world organize stars into constellations or asterisms, and these groupings are often considered to be arbitrary and culture-specific, wrote the authors of a recent paper published in Psychological Science. Yet there are striking similarities in asterisms across cultures, and groupings such as Orion, the Big Dipper, the Pleiades, and the Southern Cross are widely recognized across many different cultures. Unfortunately, many stellar groupings that some ancient cultures recognized are still not well understood by modern scholars, although we have identified some of their names and corresponding hieroglyphs or the role these stars played in calendar systems. We're going to go into a couple examples of ancient constellations and asterisms that we do know well and what they meant to cultures that connected their astral dots. Number 1, Taurus, sometimes called the oldest named constellation. Taurus the bull can be seen in the northern hemisphere during the winter and early spring. The red giant star Aldebaran makes up one of the bull's eyes. Many ancient cultures interpreted this collection of stars as a bull. Some researchers even believe that cave paintings in France, dating to 17,000 years ago, may have shown the constellation. In a Greek myth, the constellation recalls how Europa, the daughter of a Phoenician king, climbed on the back of an imposing bull who turned out to be Zeus. Zeus then flew off to Crete with Europa on his back. Other older cultures in the Middle East also worshipped bulls in places like ancient Babylon and Egypt. Among the ancient Sumerians, the constellation may be linked to the Epic of Gilgamesh, where the hero fights a bull that comes from the sky called the Bull of Heaven. Number 2, the Big Dipper, one of the most widely recognized star groupings in the night sky, carries several different interpretations, depending on the culture and time period you're talking about. The Big Dipper is nearly always above the horizon at night as long as you are north of the 35th parallel. Perhaps for this reason, the constellation has been used by sailors and other travelers to determine which way is north at night. The front lip of the Dipper points in a straight line towards the North Star or Polaris. The latter star also makes up the end of the handle of the Little Dipper. Even in ancient Greece and the Middle East, the stars that make up the Big Dipper were actually just part of a larger constellation known as Ursa Major, or the Great Bear. The Great Bear is mentioned in the Old Testament and Homer's Iliad, but these stars are also interpreted similarly by several indigenous cultures in North America. The idea of the Big Dipper may be a little more modern, at least in the way it's talked about in North America, though the origins of that interpretation are uncertain. The constellation may have had a similar meaning in ancient China, where it was significant at least 2,000 years ago when it showed up in carvings. Number 3, Pleiades. Several ancient cultures know this cluster of stars as the Seven Sisters, Seven Maidens, or other very similar names. But while usually only 6 or 7 stars are visible to many people, the group actually has as many as 12 visible to the naked eye in a very dark area. In ancient Greece, the name Pleiades refers to the 7 daughters of Atlas, the Titan god. In Indian myths, the 7 stars represent important sages. It was also considered an eye test of old, how many stars in Pleiades you could identify. Regardless of the interpretation, this asterism also had practical uses for several cultures because it rises near dawn in the spring in the northern hemisphere. This signified the beginning of sea travel and farming for some cultures. In some South American indigenous cultures, the same word used for this star cluster means year, indicating the passage of the constellation in the sky was being used to track time. Number 4, Orion. Many European legends hold that the constellation Orion is a hunter with a bow. The red eye of Taurus actually faces Orion, leading some cultures to conclude the two are fighting. The name Orion comes from the Greek legend. Ancient Egyptians believed the 3 stars of Orion's belt were the place where the god Osiris's soul resided, while the Arabs saw the whole constellation as a giant. Some theories hold that the Egyptian pyramids at Giza are aligned with the positioning of the stars in Orion's belt. In Spanish-speaking cultures, the 3 stars that make up the belt are often called Las Tres Marias, the 3 Marys, a biblical allusion. In number 5, the Milky Way. While neither a constellation nor an asterism, the stretch of our home galaxy has been interpreted similarly to other shapes in the sky for millennia by many different cultures. One common theme is that the Milky Way represents a celestial river. In East Asia, it was a river in heaven, while Greeks and Romans believed the river flowed with milk from their goddesses. For the Inuit, the river was made of snow rather than water, and for the ancient Egyptians, it was composed of wheat. Among the Navajo, the Milky Way represented coyote mischief at a time when the stars were first placed in the sky in creation myths. No matter how various cultures interpreted our Milky Way cutting across the night sky, one thing is for certain: it was a fixture of their lives. Okay, I love Orion, the constellation, and the archangel. I wanted to finish our walk across the bridge to the celestial with a deep dive on the Orion constellation, and Night Sky Taurus provides the perfect final note. Find links to their article in the show notes. It's titled Orion Across 3 Cultures. The Night Sky Tourist writes, "Few constellations command our attention like Orion, dominating the winter sky with its brilliant stars and distinctive pattern. While we may recognize it as the mighty hunter from Greek mythology, these same stars tell entirely different stories around the world. Join us as we explore how 3 cultures, Greek, Roman, Maori, and Crow Nation, view this magnificent constellation through their unique cultural lenses and in the context of their local landscapes." The hunter, Orion in Greek and Roman mythology. In Western tradition, Orion is depicted as a mighty hunter, standing among the stars. The constellation is easily identified by 3 bright stars forming his belt, with reddish Betelgeuse marking his shoulder and bluish-white Rigel marking his foot. The fainter and closer spaced stars below his belt represent his sword. According to Greek mythology, Orion was a giant hunter known for his exceptional skill and, unfortunately, his boastfulness. While several versions of his story exist, one of the most enduring tells how Orion claimed he could hunt and kill any animal on Earth. This boast angered the goddess Gaia, Earth, who sent a scorpion to defeat him. After his death, the gods placed Orion in the night sky. When Scorpius rises, Orion sets, ensuring the hunter and his nemesis never meet again. For ancient Greeks and Romans, Orion served as an important seasonal marker. His appearance in the evening sky signaled the onset of winter and stormy weather for Mediterranean sailors. Farmers also used Orion's position to time agricultural activities throughout the year, making this constellation not just a story in the stars, but a practical celestial timekeeper. For the Maori people of New Zealand, this same group of stars is known as Te Waka o Tama Rarete, or the Canoe of Tama Rarete. Within the Maori tradition of Tatai Arurangi, which is astronomy, the three bright belt stars that Westerners see as Orion's belt represent three brothers sitting together in a celestial canoe. According to Maori tradition, Tamarareti was responsible for placing the stars in the night sky. He gathered them in his canoe and carefully arranged them in the heavens. The constellation represents his journey across the celestial ocean, with the three brothers helping navigate the cosmic waters. This celestial canoe had immense practical significance for the Maori, a seafaring people who navigated vast distances across the Pacific. Orion's appearance marked specific seasonal changes that were important for fishing and planting. The constellation also embodied vital navigational knowledge, helping guide voyagers across the ocean by maintaining directional awareness through the night. The Hand, Orion in Crow Nation astronomy. Among the Crow Nation of Montana, the Absaroki, these same stars tell yet another story. In their sky traditions, Orion represents a woman's severed hand placed among the stars. The three belt stars that Greeks saw as the hunter's belt and Maoris saw as the three brothers are interpreted as the woman's wrist, while the stars forming the sword represent her thumb and other stars form her fingers. The story behind this celestial hand connects to important Crow cultural teachings. According to Crow oral tradition, this hand belonged to a woman who reached for something she shouldn't have taken. As a consequence, her hand was cut off and placed in the sky as a reminder about the importance of respecting boundaries and following proper cultural protocols. For the Crow people, this celestial hand served as both a teaching tool and a seasonal marker. Its position in the sky helped track the progression of seasons, which was crucial for knowing when to move their camps for hunting bison and gathering plants. The constellation embodied important cultural values while providing practical guidance for their traditional lifeways. These three interpretations of the same stars reveal how human cultures find meaning in the patterns overhead, while each sees something entirely different: a hunter, a canoe with three brothers, or a severed hand. All use these stars for practical purposes like tracking seasons and navigation, while embedding important cultural values and teachings in the night sky. Preserving these diverse astronomical traditions enriches our understanding of both the cosmos and humanity's relationship with the night sky. In an age of increasing light pollution and disconnection from the natural world, these stories remind us of the deep cultural significance of the stars overhead and the importance of protecting our night skies. She also gives us some stargazing tips. Orion is visible from late fall through early spring in the northern hemisphere. Look for the distinctive pattern of three stars in a row, the belt, with four bright stars forming a rough rectangle around them. The best viewing is January through March, when it's highest in the sky. Even from light-polluted areas, Orion remains one of the most easily identifiable constellations, offering a perfect starting point for new stargazers to connect with both the science and stories of our night sky. Next time you gaze at Orion, remember that you're seeing the same stars that have inspired stories across cultures and throughout time, a celestial connection linking humanity across geography and history. I realize that this might go against her credo to not use screens and things, but I think that if you want to begin diving into the rabbit hole of these constellations, these planets, even the Starlink launches and things, there are amazing apps available for free at all the app stores for your smartphone. So if you're sitting in a building and you don't have a chance to get out and look up at the sky yourself, you can open up that app and see what is over your head at the time that you open the app. I hope our conversation has connected you to the stars and it's helped you to remember your connection to all the stardust that's within you. Until next week, stay curious. I love you.